The airlock hissed open, releasing a cloud of red dust that clung to Major Elena Rhodes' boots as she stepped into the Martian quarantine zone. The alert lights flashed an angry crimson against the sterile, metallic walls, a silent alarm that the unthinkable had happened. The forgotten species they had painstakingly resurrected had broken free. Containment breach in Sector 7, the automated system announced in a flat, mechanical voice. Major, we've lost contact with 3 of the research teams, Sergeant Klein reported, a sheen of sweat glistening on his forehead despite the chill in the air. We need to re-establish control before they reach the main habitat. Elena nodded, her mind racing through the possibilities. They had unearthed DNA from ancient Martian samples and, in humanity's hubris, brought a species back to life that had lain dormant for eons. Their intentions were scientific, curiosity-fueled, but now they faced the consequences of playing God. Deploy the drones, she ordered, her voice steady though her pulse quickened. We need eyes on every sector. As the first drone launched into the dim, red-tinged sky, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow scuttling across the barren terrain too fast for its size. It was heading toward the biodomes, the heart of human life on Mars. Target spotted, Klein called out, his gaze fixed on the drone's monitor. It's moving. Fast. How fast? Elena asked, an edge of disbelief creeping into her voice. Faster than anything we've documented, Klein replied, his fingers dancing over the controls. Major, it looks like they're adapting. Adapting. The word hung heavy in the stale air, carrying with it the weight of countless potential disasters. If the species could evolve this quickly, they were dealing with a tactical nightmare beyond anything anticipated. What are our options? Elena demanded, her mind sifting through strategies. Containment, capture, or elimination, Klein replied. But Major, if they've already breached the quarantine, we might be looking at a planet-wide threat. A shiver ran down Elena's spine at the thought. The dreams of terraforming Mars into a new Earth were rapidly unraveling, and with them, the hope of humanity's expansion. Prepare for evacuation protocols, she ordered, though it pained her to consider retreat. We'll need to regroup and assess our next steps. As Klein relayed the evacuation order, the drone feed flickered, showcasing a clearer image of the creature. It was unlike anything they had predicted, a hybrid of organic and mechanical features, as if the species had merged with the remnants of ancient Martian technology. Major, Klein whispered, awe and fear woven into his tone, this changes everything. Elena's eyes narrowed, determination reigniting within. Not everything, she replied, her gaze fixed on the screen. We still have a chance. The feed cut off abruptly as the creature vanished into the shadows, leaving them in silence, an ominous reminder of the battle that lay ahead, one that would test the very limits of human ingenuity and resilience. A low rumble reverberated through the reinforced walls of the command outpost, a constant reminder of the terraforming engines struggling outside against the volatile planet. Commander Alara Voss hunched over the holographic display, her eyes tracing the erratic lines of atmospheric instability. The crisis was escalating faster than anticipated. Commander, the Northern Hemisphere's pressure is dropping. We have to recalibrate the ionizers or risk a polar vortex that could cripple our operations, Lieutenant Kai Nakamura reported, his fingers dancing over the console to bring up simulation data. Alara nodded, her mind racing. The outpost buzzed with an urgency that mirrored her thoughts. A dozen specialists, each a cog in the intricate machinery of human survival, moved with practiced efficiency. Yet beneath the surface, there was a growing dread that whispered of failure. Redirect the power from the southern turbines. We need to stabilize the core systems first, Alara ordered, her voice steady. The room fell into a concentrated silence as Kai relayed her commands, the hum of machinery the only accompaniment. Across the main hall, Dr. Mira Chen was deep in conversation with 2 of her lead scientists, their expressions tense. Myra's expertise in exoplanetary biology had been crucial in adapting Earth-based flora to this alien environment, but the accelerated atmospheric collapse threatened everything they had built. We've genetically modified these species to withstand harsh conditions, but they're not invincible, Mira stated, her tone sharp. If the temperature plummets like we're projecting, it could set us back years. Her colleague, Dr. Raj Patel, rubbed his temples, frustration evident. We're reaching a tipping point, Mira. If we can't stabilize the climate within the next 48 hours, it won't matter how resilient the plants are. Alara joined them, her presence a grounding force. Raj, Mira, we need every advantage we can muster. What do you suggest? Raj hesitated, then said, we could try accelerating the growth cycle again, forcing the flora to adapt faster. But there's a risk of mutation. And if they mutate beyond our control, Alara pressed, knowing full well the gamble they faced, then we might be dealing with an ecological chain reaction, Mira replied, her voice laced with concern. But it's a risk we might have to take. Alara considered their options, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. The decision to terraform this planet had come with the promise of a new home for humanity, a beacon of hope. But as the planet resisted their attempts to reshape it, that hope flickered precariously. She turned back to Kai. We need a contingency plan. If the ionizers fail, what's our fallback? Kai grimaced, the answer uncomfortable. There isn't one, yet. But I've been working with ops specialist Lena Torres on a potential solution involving the satellite network. If we can harness their energy output, we might boost the ionizer's reach. Alara's brow furrowed. And the downside? It's a one-shot maneuver. We could overload the satellite systems, leaving us blind and without communication, Kai admitted. Commander Voss, incoming transmission from Central Command. A voice cut through the discussion. Comms officer Danny Fraser waved her over, concern etched on her face. Alara moved swiftly to the console, the screen flickering to life with the image of Admiral Nathaniel Grant, his expression severe. Commander Voss, we've been monitoring the situation. Central Command has authorized the use of all necessary measures to stabilize the environment. We're dispatching a support fleet, but they're at least 72 hours out, Admiral Grant stated, the weight of his words unmistakable. Alara's jaw tightened. Understood, Admiral. We'll hold the line until then. Grant nodded, his gaze unwavering. Boss, failure is not an option. The colony's survival depends on your success. The transmission ended, leaving Alara with the echo of his command. Failure was not an option, but the path to success was fraught with uncertainty. Hours blurred into a frenzied dance of data analysis and strategic decisions. Alara's team worked tirelessly, recalibrating systems and adjusting projections. The outpost, once a bastion of order, now thrummed with the chaotic energy of a team on the brink. In the midst of it all, Alara found herself standing beside Kai at the observation deck. The planet's surface stretched out beneath them, a tapestry of swirling clouds and turbulent seas. It's beautiful, in its own way, Kai remarked, breaking the silence. Alara nodded, a flicker of admiration in her gaze. It is, and it's worth fighting for. Kai's expression shifted to one of determination. Then let's make sure we win this fight. Their resolve solidified. Alara and her team pressed forward. As the hours ticked by, the ionizers groaned under the strain of increased power. Satellite feeds displayed a dizzying array of data, the planet's atmosphere a battleground of opposing forces. Commander, the ionizers are holding, but just barely, Kai reported, his voice tight with tension. We're at the limits of their capacity. Alara clenched her fists, the strain of leadership a constant companion. Prepare the satellite maneuver. We need every bit of leverage we can get. As Kai and Lena coordinated the satellite array, Dr. Mira Chen approached Alara, her expression grim but resolved. We're going to initiate the accelerated growth protocol. It's risky, but we've made some adjustments that might mitigate mutation, Mira explained, her determination unwavering. Alara met her gaze, understanding the magnitude of the decision. Do it. We're running out of options and time. Mira nodded, her focus shifting to the task at hand. The team worked with a precision born of desperation, their efforts a symphony of human ingenuity. As the satellite array powered up, a low hum filled the air. The energy output surged through the ionizers, a final push against the planet's defiant nature. The data streams flickered, then coalesced into a picture of tentative stability. "We've stabilized the atmospheric pressure, Commander," Kai announced, relief mingling with caution. But the victory was short-lived. A sudden spike in seismic activity shattered the fragile balance, alarms blaring throughout the outpost. "What's happening?" Alara demanded, her heart racing. Lena's fingers flew over her console, her expression a mask of disbelief. "Commander, the planet's crust is shifting. It's a chain reaction we didn't predict." Alara's mind raced, the implications staggering. The ground beneath them trembled as the seismic waves built in intensity, threatening to undo everything they had accomplished. "Evacuate non-essential personnel to the shelters. Secure all critical systems," Alara ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The outpost descended into controlled pandemonium, the team executing her commands with practiced efficiency. But as the tremors worsened, the reality of their situation became starkly evident. "Commander," Myra's voice broke through, urgent and filled with a new kind of fear. "The mutations. They're accelerating. The flora is spreading uncontrollably." Alara's eyes widened, the realization dawning with chilling clarity. The gamble they had taken was spiraling out of control, the planet retaliating with a force they had not anticipated. "We need to contain it," Alara said, her mind racing for a solution. "Can we isolate the affected areas?" Mira shook her head, frustration etched on her features. "Not without risking the entire ecosystem. It's too integrated now." The ground shook violently, a reminder of the precariousness of their position. Alara steadied herself, determination hardening her resolve. "Kai, initiate the satellite maneuver." "It might buy us some time," Alara commanded, her voice unwavering. Kai nodded, his fingers flying over the console. The satellite network responded, a cascade of energy sweeping across the atmosphere. The outpost's lights flickered, then stabilized as the power surge coursed through the systems. For a moment, there was a fragile stillness, the planet holding its breath. But the respite was fleeting, the seismic activity building to a crescendo. "Commander, the crust is fracturing. We have to evacuate." Lena's voice cut through, urgent and filled with a new kind of fear. Alara hesitated, the weight of command pressing down on her. The colony's fate hung in the balance, the line between success and failure razor thin. "Initiate evacuation protocols. Get everyone to safety," Alara ordered, her heart heavy with the decision. As the team moved with relentless efficiency, Alara remained at the console, her gaze locked on the data streams. The planet roared around them, the once stable ground a tumultuous sea of chaos. "Commander, the support fleet is still 48 hours out," Kai reminded her, his voice a lifeline in the storm. Alara nodded, determination etched into her features. "We'll hold on. We have to." The evacuation proceeded with grim efficiency, the outpost's personnel retreating to the shelters. But as the tremors intensified, Alara knew their time was running out. With a final glance at the tumultuous landscape, Alara followed her team into the shelters, the weight of their predicament a constant companion. The planet's fury was unrelenting, the stakes higher than ever. As the shelter doors closed, sealing them in against the chaos outside, Alara's resolve hardened. They would survive this. They had to. Humanity's future depended on it. But as the ground continued to shake and the mutated flora spread unchecked, one thing was clear: the battle for this new world had only just begun. The sun had dipped below the jagged horizon of Ganymede, leaving only the faint glow of a dying world as twilight shadows crept over the terraforming colony. The air was thin, chilling to the bone, and the once vibrant landscape was a tapestry of failure, a testament to hubris painted in desperate strokes. The biomes, once lush with engineered flora, now lay barren, their artificial ecosystems collapsing one after another. Amidst this backdrop of decay, Dr. Elena Voss stood on the observation deck, her eyes scanning the monitors displaying the colony's vital statistics. Every flickering red light was a reminder of their dwindling resources. Her fingers were stained with soil samples and her thoughts were burdened with the weight of countless decisions that had led them here. She had been the visionary, the architect of humanity's great leap to terraform the Jovian moon. Now, she was struggling to keep that dream from crumbling into cosmic dust. Doctor, the atmospheric processors are showing a 15% efficiency drop in Sector 3, reported Lieutenant Marcus Hale, his voice steady yet tinged with the undercurrent of concern. Elena nodded, her mind working through the implications of this new failure. Divert power from non-essential systems. We need to maintain the oxygen levels at all costs. Marcus hesitated, his gaze lingering on her. We've already cut everything to the bone, Elena. We're running out of things to sacrifice. She met his eyes, a silent exchange passing between them, a shared understanding of the stakes and the grim determination to persevere. Then we push harder, find ways to stretch what we have. He nodded, a soldier's resolve in his stance, yet there was an unspoken question in his eyes. How much longer could they go on like this? As if in answer, the ground shuddered beneath them, a tremor that sent a ripple of unease through the colony. Elena steadied herself against the console, her heart skipping a beat. They had expected tremors. The planet's unstable core was a known risk. But this was different, stronger. Report, she barked, her voice cutting through the tension. Seismic activity in Quadrant 7, a voice crackled through the comms. Magnitude 5.2 and rising. That area wasn't supposed to be active, Marcus muttered. Elena's mind raced, piecing together a puzzle with missing pieces. The terraforming algorithms had predicted such events would be rare, manageable. But reality was defying their calculations, and the tremors were becoming more frequent. Prepare the emergency protocols, Elena ordered. Get everyone to shelter. We need to reassess our models. As Marcus relayed the orders, Elena remained at the console, her thoughts drifting to the past. They had come here with dreams of breathing life into an alien world, of resurrecting a forgotten species that had once thrived in the ancient oceans of Earth. The biosynthetic organisms, crafted in the labs from fragments of ancient DNA, were meant to be the keystone of their terraforming efforts, a species adapted to thrive in low-oxygen, high-pressure environments. Yet, like everything else, they were failing. She had championed the resurrection, believing in humanity's potential to create something new, to learn from the mistakes of the past. But what if they had resurrected more than just organisms? What if they had awakened something else, something that had lain dormant, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Elena, Marcus called softly, breaking her reverie. She turned to him, seeing the lines etched into his face, a mirror of her own. They had been friends long before this mission, their bond forged in the fires of ambition and tempered by shared struggles. Now, it was a lifeline, a tether to sanity in a world spiraling into chaos. We'll find a way, Marcus said, his voice a promise. Elena nodded, though doubt gnawed at her resolve. We have to. There's no going back. The tremors subsided, but the sense of foreboding lingered. They had survived another day, but the battle was far from over. In the heart of the colony, the biosynthetic labs buzzed with activity, a stark contrast to the desolation outside. Dr. Rajan Patel worked tirelessly, hunched over a series of petri dishes, each containing fragments of the resurrected species. His hands moved with precision, yet his mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts. The organisms were failing to adapt, their genetic codes unraveling under the strain of the altered environment. Rajan had dedicated his life to this work, driven by the desire to see life flourish once more. But now, he questioned the very foundations of his research. A soft chime announced the arrival of someone, and he looked up to see Mei Chen entering the lab, her expression a mix of frustration and determination. Mei was an engineer, her expertise in environmental systems critical to the colony's survival. They had clashed often, their approaches divergent yet complementary. Rajan, I need your input on the nutrient dispersal system, Mei said, skipping pleasantries. The current setup isn't sustaining the biomes. He nodded, pushing aside his doubts for the moment. I've been thinking we need to recalibrate the nutrient profiles. The original formula isn't compatible with the current atmospheric conditions. Then let's do it, May replied, her eyes locking onto his. We don't have time to second guess. Their collaboration was born out of necessity, yet it had grown into a mutual respect, an understanding of the other's strengths and weaknesses. Together, they had kept the colony's heart beating, even as the edges frayed. As they discussed possible solutions, Rajan couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something vital, a piece of the puzzle that refused to reveal itself. The organisms were more than just a scientific curiosity. They were a key to survival, and he was determined to unlock their potential. The days blurred into nights, each indistinguishable from the last as the colony struggled to maintain equilibrium. Alina's mind was a whirl of exhaustion and determination, her every waking moment consumed by the relentless challenges. In the quiet moments between crises, she found herself drawn to the observation deck, a place of solitude where she could confront her thoughts. It was here that Marcus found her, his presence a comforting constant. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said, concern lacing his words. She turned to him, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "And you're not?" He shrugged, a gesture of shared burden. "We all are, but you're the one holding everything together. Sometimes, I wonder if it's all worth it," Elena admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "It is, if not for us, then for the future. For those who will come after." His words resonated with a truth she couldn't deny. They were pioneers, carving a path through uncertainty, guided by the flickering light of hope. But the shadows were growing, and the path was fraught with dangers they hadn't anticipated. The colony's situation continued to deteriorate, each day bringing new challenges. The seismic activity was growing more intense, the tremors now a constant presence that gnawed at their nerves. Supplies were dwindling, and the once hopeful atmosphere of the colony had shifted to one of grim determination. Amidst this chaos, Elena called a meeting with the senior staff, their faces weary but resolute. They gathered in the command center, a room lined with screens displaying the colony's status, each one a testament to their struggle. "We're running out of time," Elena began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "Our resources are stretched to the limit, and the seismic activity shows no signs of abating." May spoke up, her tone pragmatic. "We've been working on reinforcing the structural integrity of the habitats, but it's a temporary fix. We need a long-term solution." Rajan leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "The organisms. What if we're missing a crucial adaptation? Something that could stabilize the environment?" Elena considered his words, her mind racing. "You're suggesting we modify their genetic structure further?" "It's risky," Rajan admitted. "But it's a risk we may have to take," Marcus interjected, his gaze sweeping the room. "We need to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. If the colony becomes uninhabitable, evacuation procedures must be our priority." A heavy silence followed his words, the reality of their situation settling over them like a shroud. They were on the brink, and the decisions they made now would determine the fate of everyone on Ganymede. "Let's explore both options," Elena decided, her voice firm. "We focus on stabilizing the organisms and enhancing our evacuation plans. We must be ready for anything." The meeting ended, yet the sense of urgency lingered. As the team dispersed, Elena remained, her thoughts a maelstrom of uncertainty. They were fighting an uphill battle, outmatched by forces beyond their control. But she refused to yield, driven by a relentless determination to find a way through the darkness. In the days that followed, the colony became a hive of activity, each person driven by the knowledge that their future depended on their efforts. Rajan and May worked tirelessly in the lab, experimenting with genetic modifications in a race against time. The organisms showed promise, responding to the changes with resilience, yet their ultimate success remained uncertain. Meanwhile, Marcus coordinated the evacuation protocols, his military precision ensuring that every contingency was accounted for. It was a grim task, yet it was one he approached with unwavering focus, a guardian against impending disaster. Elena moved between the teams, her presence a source of motivation and resolve. She was their leader, their anchor in the storm, and she bore the weight of their hopes and fears with grace. But despite their efforts, the fractures within the colony were growing. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, the stress of survival eroding the bonds they had forged. Arguments flared over resources, decisions second-guessed in the heat of desperation. One such confrontation arose between Rajan and May, their disagreement spilling into the corridors like wildfire. It was a clash of wills, their voices raised in frustration as they debated the merits of their approach. You can't just alter the genetic code without considering the long-term impact. May argued, her eyes blazing. We don't have the luxury of time, May, Rajan shot back, his voice edged with urgency. We need results, now. Their argument drew the attention of others, their colleagues watching with a mixture of concern and fatigue. It was Elena who intervened, her voice cutting through the tension with calm authority. Enough, she said, her gaze moving between them. This isn't the time for division. We need to work together. Rajan and May exchanged a look, their tempers cooling in the face of Elena's steady presence. They were reminded of their shared purpose, the reason they had come to this distant world. We're all under pressure, Elena continued, her tone softening. But we can't let it tear us apart. We need each other, now more than ever. Her words resonated, a balm to frayed nerves, and the team refocused their efforts with renewed determination. They were on the precipice, yet they refused to falter, drawn together by the belief that they could overcome even the greatest odds. As the situation reached a critical juncture, Elena found herself standing once more on the observation deck, the vastness of the cosmos stretching out before her. She was alone, yet the weight of countless lives pressed upon her shoulders. The tremors continued, a relentless reminder of their precarious existence. But in the midst of this turmoil, Elena glimpsed a glimmer of hope, a potential breakthrough in the lab, a moment of clarity in the chaos. She held onto that hope, nurturing it like a fragile flame against the encroaching darkness. For even in the face of insurmountable odds, humanity's strength lay not in its ability to conquer, but in its unyielding spirit to endure. And so, they would fight on, their resolve unbroken, their journey far from over. For they were pioneers, and their legacy was yet to be written among the stars. The winds howled their discontent across the barren plains of Epsilon Prime, a planet that had once promised hope and renewal. The perpetual dust storms scoured the land, their bitter whispers a constant reminder of the planet's refusal to bend to human will. For the terraforming team, it was yet another day in a long line of defeats, each more demoralizing than the last. Commander Alara Chen stood at the observation deck, her eyes scanning the horizon through the reinforced glass. The vista, a swirling mass of ochre and gray, was as unforgiving as ever. She clenched her jaw, feeling the weight of their failures settle heavily on her shoulders. The terraforming project had been her life's work, a promise she had made to Earth and to herself. But now, as the planet rejected their efforts at every turn, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Commander, a voice crackled over the intercom, snapping her from her reverie. It was Dr. Malik, their chief scientist, whose voice carried a mixture of urgency and weariness. We've got another problem. The atmospheric processors are offline again. Alara's heart sank. The processors were the linchpin of their operation, designed to convert the planet's toxic atmosphere into something breathable. Without them, Epsilon Prime was nothing more than a beautiful but deadly wasteland. I'm on my way, she replied, making her way through the narrow corridors of the habitat module. The walls seemed to close in on her, a physical manifestation of the pressure mounting with each passing day. In the control room, Dr. Malik stood surrounded by a sea of blinking consoles and frustrated technicians. His eyes met Alara's, and she could see the lines of exhaustion etched deep into his face. It's the power grid, he explained. The dust storms are wreaking havoc on the solar arrays. We've rerouted power from non-essential systems, but it's only a temporary fix." Alara nodded, her mind racing. The storms had always been a problem, but recently, their ferocity had increased. It was almost as if the planet sensed their desperation and was fighting back with renewed vigor. "What about the auxiliary generators?" she asked. "We've got them running at full capacity, but they can't sustain the load indefinitely," Malik replied. "And with the main reactors still offline from last week's quake," Alara cursed under her breath. The quake had been a brutal reminder of the planet's unpredictable nature, severing power lines and damaging critical infrastructure. Repairs were slow, hindered by both the storm and dwindling supplies. "We need solutions, Malik," Alara said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "If we can't keep the processors online, we might as well pack up and go home." Malik nodded, his gaze dropping to the floor. "I'm working on it, Commander. But we're running out of options. End time." As if on cue, the lights flickered, casting the room into brief darkness before the backup systems kicked in. It was a stark reminder of their precarious situation, the thin line they walked between survival and extinction. Meanwhile, outside the relative safety of their habitat, the planet's true inhabitants moved with an unsettling precision. The indigenous species, intelligent and enigmatic, had initially been a minor consideration in the human plans. But as the terraforming efforts progressed, or rather regressed, it became clear they were more than just passive observers. The project had been met with increasing resistance, subtle at first, malfunctioning equipment, unusual weather patterns, but now undeniable. The native population seemed to possess a preternatural understanding of the planet's systems, using them to counteract human technology with uncanny effectiveness. What had been dismissed as mere coincidence was now understood as a coordinated effort to reclaim their world. Back in the control room, Alara and her team pored over data, searching for a way forward. The air was thick with tension, each member acutely aware of the stakes. Failure was not an option, yet success seemed increasingly out of reach. "We may need to consider an unconventional approach," said Lieutenant Harris, one of the engineering leads. His voice broke the silence, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the gloom. "If we can't rely on the processors, maybe we can adapt to the environment instead." Alara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You mean modify ourselves?" Harris nodded, a determined gleam in his eyes. "We've been developing adaptive technologies for decades, biotech interfaces, exosuits. We could enhance our physical capabilities to withstand the harsh conditions, at least temporarily." "It's a gamble," Malik said, voicing the concern that lay unspoken. "The risks could be enormous, especially without proper testing. But what choice do we have?" Harris countered. "The planet isn't going to get any less hostile. If we don't adapt, we perish." The room fell silent as Alara weighed the options. It was a radical solution, fraught with uncertainty. But as she looked around at her team, she saw something she hadn't expected: a quiet, stubborn resolve. It was the indomitable spirit of humanity, the refusal to surrender even in the face of overwhelming odds. "Let's explore it," she decided, feeling the first stirrings of hope in what felt like an eternity. "We need every advantage we can get." The next few days were a blur of activity, a frantic race against time. The engineering team worked tirelessly, adapting the exosuits and tweaking the biotech enhancements. Meanwhile, Dr. Malik spearheaded efforts to stabilize the power grid, working closely with the data analytics team to predict and mitigate the effects of the dust storms. Outside, the planet continued its assault, the storms growing in intensity. The indigenous species, dubbed natives by the team, remained an ever-present threat, their actions growing bolder as the days wore on. They seemed to understand human technology in a way that defied explanation, disabling equipment and sabotaging progress with alarming precision. Tensions ran high within the base, the constant strain of survival fraying nerves and testing loyalties. Alara found herself mediating disputes more often than she liked, her role as leader stretching her to the limits. The stress was palpable, a living thing that gnawed at the edges of her consciousness. Personal conflicts simmered beneath the surface, adding to the volatile mix. Harris and Malik clashed frequently over priorities, each convinced their approach was the key to salvation. Their arguments, heated and passionate, echoed through the halls, a microcosm of the larger struggle for survival. Yet through it all, there were moments that reminded Alara of humanity's strength. A shared laugh over a meal, the camaraderie of a team bonded by adversity. It was these fleeting glimpses of connection that kept her going, that fueled her determination to succeed. As the planet's hostility grew, so did the humans' resolve. The adaptive suits proved effective, allowing the team to venture into the storm-ravaged landscape for short periods. They collected data, repaired equipment, and searched for any signs of weakness in the natives' strategy. But even as they adapted, the situation remained precarious. Supplies were dwindling, and morale was fragile. They needed a breakthrough, something to tip the scales in their favor. That breakthrough came unexpectedly, in the form of a young scientist named Aisha. She had been working quietly on a side project, analyzing the planet's magnetic fields and their interaction with human technology. Her findings suggested a hidden pattern, a resonance that could be harnessed to amplify their communication signals and potentially disrupt the natives' coordination. "It's a long shot," Aisha admitted, her voice a mixture of excitement and caution. "But if we can tap into this frequency, we might be able to turn the tide." Alara listened intently, her mind racing with possibilities. It was a daring plan, reliant on unproven science and a deep understanding of the planet's complex systems. But it was also their best chance to regain some semblance of control. "We'll need to test it," Alara said, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline. "Coordinate with Harris and Malik. Let's see if we can make this work." The team sprang into action, their efforts redoubled by the promise of a potential advantage. As they worked, Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in their resilience. Despite the odds, despite the setbacks, they refused to give up. But the planet was not done testing them. As the team prepared for the critical test of Aisha's theory, a new crisis loomed. The natives, aware of the humans' renewed activity, launched their most aggressive assault yet. Equipment was sabotaged, key systems disrupted, and the base plunged into chaos. It was their darkest hour, a moment when all seemed lost. The power flickered and failed, casting the base into darkness, the only sound the relentless roar of the storm outside. Desperation clawed at Alara's heart, but she refused to let it take hold. "We're not done yet," she declared, her voice cutting through the gloom. "We still have options." Amidst the chaos, the team rallied, their determination unyielding. They worked by the light of emergency lanterns, manually restoring power to critical systems. Aisha and her team pushed forward with the test, improvising solutions and overcoming obstacles with a tenacity born of necessity. As the base slowly came back to life, Alara felt a flicker of hope. They were battered and bruised, but not broken. The planet had thrown everything it had at them, but they were still standing, still fighting for their place on this hostile world. It was a testament to the human spirit, to their ability to adapt and persevere in the face of adversity. As the first signals of success began to filter through the static, Alara knew they had turned a corner. It was not the end, but a new beginning, a chance to reclaim their mission and forge a future on Epsilon Prime. But for now, they stood on the precipice, facing their darkest moment with courage and strength. They were human, and they would not be defeated. The sprawling expanse of the Ares Valley was a graveyard of broken dreams. What had once been the pride of humanity's terraforming efforts now lay still, a barren wasteland of dust and jagged rocks. The towering machines, once vibrant with the hum of creation, stood silent and dead, their metallic entrails exposed like the ribs of ancient beasts. The sky, an unending canvas of copper red, seemed to press down upon the earth with an oppressive weight, a constant reminder of the planet's relentless hostility. Colonel Adrian Carter scanned the horizon from the observation deck of the last functional habitat module. Her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, her mind a maelstrom of calculations and contingency plans. The failure of the terraforming processors had been sudden and catastrophic. What should have been a gradual transformation of Mars into a new Eden had instead become a nightmarish descent into chaos. The atmospheric processors had stalled, the oxygen levels plummeted, and the temperature stabilization units had faltered. All the while, the alien opposition, the Xanthi, watched with an air of smug indifference, their silent ships orbiting the planet like vultures. The Xanthi had always been a mystery, their motives inscrutable. They had descended upon the Mars outposts with precision, disrupting the terraforming efforts with surgical strikes that left humanity reeling. Yet, with all their technological superiority, they had not annihilated the human presence outright. Instead, they seemed content to watch the humans struggle, as if the spectacle itself was their prize. Adrian turned away from the window, her mind turning to the small group of survivors that huddled within the confines of the module. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers, each one exhausted, yet none willing to surrender. In their eyes, she saw the flickering embers of defiance. "We need a new plan," she stated, her voice cutting through the oppressive silence of the room. Dr. Marcus Levine, the chief scientist and a man driven by equal parts brilliance and madness, leaned over the table, his fingers tracing a map of the Ares Valley. "We've analyzed the processor failures, Colonel. It's sabotage, not a coincidence. The Xanthi have inserted some kind of viral code into our systems." Adrian nodded, her jaw clenched tight. "How do we fight back?" "We need to purge the systems and reboot the processors," Levine suggested, his voice tinged with desperation. "But we need time, and we need power. The solar farms are operational, but we need to protect them long enough to pull this off." Major Elena Reyes, the head of security, crossed her arms, her expression grim. "The Xanthi won't give us a free pass. We've got patrols scouring the valley, but they'll need support. We'll need to draw the Xanthi's attention away from the processors." Adrian's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they weren't out of options. "We'll use the drones," she decided, her voice steady with determination. "We'll rig them with EMP charges, target their comms relays. We can disrupt their coordination long enough to give us a window." Reyes nodded, her eyes sparking with a newfound resolve. "We'll need every able body on this, Colonel. It's a long shot, but it's all we've got." The room buzzed with a renewed energy as tasks were delegated and a sense of purpose took root. The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless, but it was driven by necessity and an unwavering will to survive. Each person moved with a grim determination, an unspoken agreement binding them together. Humanity would not fall without a fight. As the team dispersed, Adrian lingered, her gaze drifting back to the barren landscape outside. The Xanthi ships hung in the air like specters, their dominance unchallenged. Yet, even in this darkest hour, she felt a stirring of defiance. The Xanthi may have underestimated the resilience of humanity. They may have believed the planet itself would do their work for them. But they were wrong. Over the next few hours, the colony became a hive of activity. Engineers labored tirelessly to modify the drones, fitting them with makeshift EMP devices scavenged from the remnants of failed machinery. Soldiers readied themselves, checking weapons and armor, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with the Xanthi. Scientists coordinated the reboot protocol, their fingers flying over keyboards as they fought against the dwindling clock. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape, the time for action drew near. Adrian stood at the forefront of the command center, her presence a calming beacon amidst the storm of nerves. "Are we ready?" she asked, her voice cutting through the low hum of anticipation. Reyes gave a sharp nod. "Drones are in position, Colonel. We've got teams ready to move on your command." Levine looked up from his terminal, a flicker of anxiety in his eyes. "The reboot sequence is primed. We just need 10 minutes of uninterrupted power." Adrian took a deep breath, her mind a steel trap around the plan. Then let's give them hell. Commence operation. The command was relayed, and the drones buzzed to life, streaking across the sky like a swarm of angry hornets. Each carried its precious payload, a beacon of hope wrapped in a shell of desperation. They soared towards the Xanthi comms relays, the heart of the alien coordination network. The first explosions lit up the night sky, a series of brilliant flashes that shattered the stillness. The Xanthi ships faltered, their elegant formations disrupted as their systems scrambled to compensate for the sudden disruption. It was a momentary chaos, but it was all the humans needed. Adrian's voice was a steady anchor over the comms. Reyes, move your teams. We need to keep them off balance. Reyes led her squads through the maze of shattered structures, their movements a dance of precision and purpose. They struck quickly, guerrilla tactics honed through practice and desperation, exploiting every moment of confusion among the Xanthi ranks. Inside the module, Levine coordinated the reboot sequence with meticulous precision, his team working in a synchronized ballet of control panel adjustments and code executions. The solar farms thrummed with energy, their panels tilted to catch the last vestiges of daylight, channeling power into the terraforming processors. Minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Adrian's heart pounded in her chest, each second a hammer blow of tension. She could feel the weight of the operation pressing down upon her, the lives of everyone hinging on the success of this one desperate gamble. The Xanthi began to regroup, their ships shifting into new formations, their focus narrowing in on the colony. Adrian could almost feel their gaze, a cold, calculating presence that sought to snuff out the flicker of defiance. Reyes's voice crackled over the comms, breathless but fierce. We're holding them back, Colonel. But we can't keep this up forever. Adrian tightened her grip on the console, willing strength into her voice. Hold the line, Major. Just a little longer. We're almost there. Levine's voice broke through the tension, a note of triumph in his words. Reboot sequence initiated, Colonel. We're online. A cheer rippled through the command center, a surge of hope that burned away the exhaustion. The processors hummed to life, their systems purging the viral code, reclaiming control over the terraforming infrastructure. But the victory was bittersweet. The Xanthi had rallied, their ships closing in on the colony with relentless precision. The drones had done their work, but the aliens' technological superiority was an ever-present specter. Adrian watched the Xanthi advance, her mind a flurry of thoughts and strategies. They had bought themselves a chance, but it wasn't enough. The odds were still stacked against them, the path to survival fraught with peril. Yet, even in this moment of impending doom, a plan began to take shape in her mind. The Xanthi were overconfident, blinded by their belief in humanity's inevitable defeat. They had underestimated human ingenuity, the power of unity in adversity. Adrian turned to her team, her voice a rallying cry in the face of despair. We've won a battle, but the war is far from over. We need to exploit their arrogance, find their weaknesses. We've shown them our resilience, now let's show them our resolve. The room responded with a chorus of affirmations, the air electric with determination. They had been pushed to the brink, but they would not falter. The seeds of resurgence had been planted, their roots taking hold in the fertile soil of defiance. As the Xanthi ships loomed ever closer, casting their shadow over the valley, Adrian felt a spark ignite within her. The battle was far from over, but the tide was beginning to turn. Each breath, each heartbeat, was a testament to humanity's indomitable spirit. This was not the end. This was the moment everything would change. The landscape of Proxima Centauri b was a desolate expanse, its wind-swept plains stained with the rust-colored despair of a failed terraforming endeavor. The atmospheric processors, now silent and cold, stood like colossal tombstones marking humanity's once aspiring ambitions. This world, deemed ripe for colonization, had instead turned against its would-be architects, betraying them with volatile weather patterns and an ecosystem refusing to be tamed. But as the appointed custodians of this alien world, the human settlers remained undeterred, driven by the relentless pursuit of survival. 3 years into the project, a string of unforeseen setbacks had transformed optimism into desperation. The engineering marvels that had promised to transform the planet into a new Eden had been thwarted by geological instability and biochemical resistance. The alien biosphere stubbornly rejected the genetically engineered seeds and microbes intended to reshape its soil and atmosphere. The original project leaders, a consortium of interstellar corporations, had already begun withdrawing support, cutting losses in favor of more promising ventures. Yet, where the corporations saw failure, the settlers saw opportunity. Among these determined souls was Dr. Elise Park, a lead bioengineer whose tenacity had become the linchpin of the colony's survival. In the sterile confines of her laboratory, she pored over data, her mind a symphony of strategic calculations and innovative solutions. It was here, amidst the flickering holographic screens, that the first embers of humanity's resurgence were ignited. Elise's breakthrough came not from the grand designs of terraforming, but from the microcosm of adaptability. Observing the native flora, she noted how they thrived under conditions that stifled Earth-born life. It was a subtle shift in perspective, a revelation that perhaps the key to survival lay not in altering the planet, but in altering themselves. The settlers had brought with them a repository of genetic material and advanced CRISPR technology intended for agricultural modification. Elise proposed a radical pivot: to use these resources to bioengineer the human genome, enhancing resilience to Proxima's hostile conditions. The idea was audacious, bordering on heretical, but desperation had eroded the barriers of convention. The Council of Settlers, initially skeptical, convened under the artificial glow of the colony's central hub. The room hummed with the tension of unspoken doubts and unyielding resolve. Elise presented her findings, her voice firm with conviction. She laid out the plan with precision, detailing how incremental genetic adaptations could bolster human physiology, providing the endurance and resistance necessary to thrive on this world. The settlers listened, their eyes reflecting the flicker of hope that had long been absent. Despite the risk, the council voted in favor. Humanity had always been defined by its adaptability, and here, on the frontier of survival, they would embrace evolution once more. As the genetic enhancements began, the settlers underwent a metamorphosis. They bore witness to their own transformation, their bodies adapting to the denser atmosphere and higher levels of ultraviolet radiation. The changes were subtle at first: increased lung capacity, heightened energy efficiency, and augmented resistance to the planet's native pathogens. But soon, these adaptations became pronounced, empowering them to operate beyond the confines of the colony's protective domes. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the settlers, a shadow of scrutiny loomed. The consortium, eager to recoup their investment, dispatched an oversight delegation to reassess the viability of the project. Led by the calculating director Tarson, the delegation arrived expecting to document a failed venture. Instead, they found a community on the brink of a startling metamorphosis. Their observations were met with a mixture of disbelief and intrigue. The settlers, once beleaguered and isolated, now moved with a sense of purpose and vitality that defied the inhospitable environment. Tarson, a man of empirical logic, found himself grappling with the unsettling notion that the consortium had underestimated their tenacity. Tarson, Elise greeted him with a measured nod, her eyes betraying nothing of the internal triumph she felt. "I assume you've seen the changes firsthand?" "I have," Tarson replied, his voice laced with cautious curiosity. "But I must admit, they are unexpected." Elise smiled, a gesture both welcoming and defiant. "Humanity's greatest strength has always been its ability to adapt," she said. "We are not bound by the limits of our environment. We redefine them." Tarson's analytical mind raced, processing the implications of such a transformation. The consortium's objectives had been rooted in reshaping the planet, yet here were humans reshaping themselves. It was both a strategic revelation and a potential threat, challenging the very foundations of their approach to colonization. As days turned to weeks, the delegation's reports painted an increasingly complex picture. The settlers were not merely surviving, they were thriving. The consortium's initial assessment, that humanity's grip on Proxima b was tenuous at best, was now being called into question. Elise's strategy of genetic adaptation had not only stabilized the colony but had set them on a trajectory towards long-term viability. The turning point came during a particularly violent storm, a meteorological phenomenon that had previously crippled the colony's efforts. This time, however, the settlers were ready. Enhanced and emboldened, they faced the tempest with a newfound resilience. They fortified the colony's infrastructure, utilizing materials and methods devised through their enhanced ingenuity. When the storm passed, the colony stood unscathed, a testament to human innovation and willpower. Word of the settlers' success reached the consortium's board of directors, prompting an emergency session. The implications of such adaptability were profound, extending beyond Proxima b to other potential colonies across the galaxy. Humanity, it seemed, had discovered a new paradigm for survival and expansion. As the board deliberated, Elise and her team continued to refine their genetic enhancements, exploring the limits of human adaptability. They were pioneers, charting a course through uncharted territory, driven by a vision that extended beyond mere survival. Their efforts were no longer just about making do. They were about thriving, about establishing a foothold in the cosmos that would endure. The realization dawned slowly, like the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. Humanity, underestimated and overlooked, had emerged stronger, more adaptable, and more determined than ever. Their ingenuity had turned the tide, transforming a failure into an opportunity, and a challenge into a triumph. Tarson, once skeptical, now found himself an advocate for the settlers' cause. He lobbied the consortium to reconsider their withdrawal, to invest in this new model of colonization that embraced human evolution as its cornerstone. It was a bold proposal, one that challenged traditional paradigms, but the evidence was undeniable. The settlers, having faced the brink of despair, now stood poised to redefine humanity's place among the stars. Their journey was far from over, but they had proven their mettle, demonstrating a strength that transcended the limitations of their environment. As Elise gazed out over the windswept plains of Proxima b, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The path forward was fraught with uncertainty, but she knew that humanity's true strength lay in its ability to adapt, to innovate, and to endure. This was the turning point, the moment when the tide began to shift, and the universe took notice of a species not to be underestimated. In the heart of the colony, the settlers gathered, united by a shared purpose and a renewed sense of hope. They had faced the abyss and emerged stronger, their bodies and minds honed by the challenges they had overcome. As they looked to the future, they knew that their story was only just beginning, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. For the settlers of Proxima b, the stars were no longer out of reach. They were within grasp, waiting to be explored, to be claimed by a species that had learned to redefine the very essence of survival. And as the first tendrils of dawn crept across the sky, they stood together, ready to face whatever new challenges awaited them on the horizon. The stars blinked into existence one by one, like distant beacons of hope scattered across the tapestry of space. The domed observation deck of the USS Endeavour offered a grand view, a panorama of the galaxy unfolding beyond the glass. Commander Arya Sandoval stood at the helm, her gaze fixed on the desolate planet below, a once promising world now hopelessly resistant to human colonization efforts. Status report, Arya commanded, her voice the comm center amidst a storm of activity. Terraforming systems remain offline, Lieutenant Chen responded, his fingers dancing across the holographic console. Noxious gases are persisting in the atmosphere, rendering the surface uninhabitable for the foreseeable future. Arya nodded, absorbing the futility of their efforts. The alien world, designated X-47, had been a beacon of hope for humanity's expansion, a second Earth, or so they had thought. But the planet's ecosystem was a complex web that defied their attempts at transformation, shifting and adapting to counteract each human intervention. "We should abort the mission," Captain Drayden suggested from his station, a note of resignation in his voice. "We've already lost too much." That was the rational decision, Arya knew. Yet, as she surveyed the planet, a fire of defiance burned within her. Humanity had come too far, endured too much, to concede defeat. "No," she said, her voice firm. "We can't turn back now. This isn't just about survival. It's about proving that we can overcome any obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it seems." Drayden met her gaze, a flicker of renewed determination mirrored in his eyes. "What do you propose, Commander?" Arya turned to the assembled crew, her mind racing with possibilities. "We need a new strategy. Something bold. Something that embodies the very essence of human ingenuity." The ship's AI, Athena, chimed in, her voice smooth and reassuring. "Analyzing available resources and potential strategies. Cross-referencing with historical data on adaptive ecosystems." Arya paced the deck, a whirlwind of thoughts coalescing into a singular vision. "We've been approaching this all wrong. Instead of forcing the planet to change, we need to adapt alongside it. We need to establish a symbiotic relationship." Lieutenant Chen's eyes widened in realization. "You're suggesting we integrate our technology with the planet's ecosystem?" "Exactly," Arya confirmed. "We'll leverage our nanotechnology to create a network of adaptive nodes that can communicate with the planet's biosphere. We'll introduce a hybrid system that can dynamically adjust to environmental changes, working in harmony rather than opposition." Drayden contemplated the plan, his strategic mind evaluating the risks and rewards. "It's a gamble, but it's the kind of gamble that has defined humanity's greatest achievements." The crew sprang into action, a collective force of determination and innovation. Engineers and scientists collaborated, pooling their expertise to design the adaptive nodes, a fusion of technology and biology, each node a small miracle of human ingenuity. As the nodes were deployed, a palpable tension filled the atmosphere. Arya watched from the observation deck, her heart pounding in sync with the rhythmic pulses of light emanating from the nodes below. The planet's surface seemed to shimmer, a kaleidoscope of colors as the nodes interfaced with the alien biosphere, establishing a dialogue between worlds. For weeks, the crew monitored the integration process, each day bringing new challenges and triumphs. The nodes began to stabilize the planet's climate, mitigating the aggressive fluctuations that had thwarted previous efforts. Vegetation adapted to the new conditions, flourishing where once only desolation reigned. Then came the turning point, a moment that would echo through history as the apex of human perseverance. "Commander, we're detecting a significant shift in the atmosphere," Chen reported, his voice barely containing his excitement. "Oxygen levels are rising, and the hazardous gases are dissipating." A cheer erupted from the crew, the culmination of their efforts manifesting before their eyes. Arya felt a surge of pride, not just in the success of their mission, but in the indomitable spirit of humanity itself. They had achieved what many had deemed impossible, rewriting the narrative of defeat into one of victory. The planet, once an unyielding adversary, now lay transformed, a testament to the power of human resilience and innovation. The alien antagonists, those who had designed the planet's defenses to thwart human colonization, watched in disbelief. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for adaptation and cooperation, their hubris blinding them to the true potential of their adversaries. In the command center of the alien stronghold, their leader, Zeller, stared at the data streaming across the holographic displays. The humans had succeeded where countless others had failed. Their ingenuity, their refusal to accept defeat, had turned the tide in their favor. How did they do it? One of Zeller's advisors questioned, disbelief etched across their features. They adapted, Zeller replied, a note of grudging admiration in their voice. They embraced the challenge, redefined the parameters of conflict. They evolved. The realization settled over the alien council like a shroud, a stark reminder of their own limitations. In their arrogance, they had assumed superiority, never anticipating that their greatest adversaries would be those who thrived on adversity. Back on the USS Endeavour, the crew celebrated their victory, the air buzzing with jubilation. Arya stood amidst them, a smile playing on her lips. This moment, this triumph, was a testament to what humanity could achieve when united in purpose. Commander Sandoval, Athena's voice interrupted her thoughts. Incoming transmission from Earth. The President wishes to speak with you. Arya nodded, stepping away from the revelry to receive the call. The President's face appeared on the screen, a reflection of awe and gratitude. Commander Sandoval, on behalf of all humanity, thank you, the President said. Your leadership and the bravery of your crew have opened new horizons for our species. You've not only secured our future but elevated what it means to be human. Thank you, sir, Arya replied, her voice filled with emotion. This victory belongs to all of us, the culmination of our shared dreams and aspirations. As the transmission ended, Arya returned to her crew, the weight of their accomplishment settling in. They had defied the odds, rewritten the rules, and secured a place for humanity among the stars. The legacy of their triumph would echo through the ages, a beacon of hope for generations to come. Humanity, with all its flaws and brilliance, had once again proven that it was capable of greatness. As the USS Endeavour set course for its next mission, the planet below continued to thrive, a living testament to the symbiosis of human and alien ingenuity. The stars beckoned, each one a new challenge, a new opportunity for discovery. And humanity would be ready, armed with the knowledge that no obstacle was too great, no barrier too insurmountable. They would face the future with courage and determination, for they had learned the greatest lesson of all, that in unity, in the pursuit of a common goal, there was nothing they could not achieve. The universe awaited, a canvas for humanity's boundless imagination, and as Arya Sandoval looked to the stars, she knew that this was only the beginning. A new chapter in the endless story of human triumph. The horizon shimmered with the hues of an alien dawn, a dawn that should not have been possible. The atmosphere of Kalyara, once a toxic swirl of gases inhospitable to any form of terrestrial life, now supported the miracle of a blue sky. It was a testament to grit, determination, and above all, the unyielding spirit of humanity. Dr. Alara Chen stood at the crest of a ridge overlooking the terraformed valley. The land below teemed with verdant plains, a stark contrast to the barren wasteland she had first encountered. Her heart swelled with pride and a bittersweet nostalgia. The project had cost them dearly, friends, resources, and time. Yet, in the cycle of sacrifice and growth, new life had blossomed. The victory against the odds had not come easily. The alien syndicate, determined to halt humanity's progress, had launched relentless sabotage missions against their terraforming apparatus. It was a campaign of attrition, one they had nearly lost. But human ingenuity found a way, as it always did. The break came when Alara and her team discovered a method to harness the planet's geothermal energy, turning it into a formidable shield that repelled the alien interference. Standing beside her, Captain Marcus Holt squinted against the rising sun. Not bad for a species that wasn't supposed to survive, he said with a grin. The last 3 years had transformed him from the grizzled skeptic who had known only war to a leader who believed in the promise of peace. His military acumen had been instrumental in defending their operation, but it was his evolving belief in a peaceful future that had rallied the crew when spirits had flagged. Not bad at all, Alara replied, her voice tinged with exhaustion and triumph. She thought of the team members they had lost. Scientists like Kumar who had perished in an explosion. Engineers like Zane who had died saving others. Their sacrifices had been woven into the very fabric of this new world. With the alien syndicate now retreating, their resources depleted and their political will eroded, humanity had the breathing room it needed to consolidate its hold on Kalyara. The syndicate's withdrawal marked a significant shift in the balance of power across the galaxy. Other planets, once under the syndicate's oppressive influence, now looked to humanity as a beacon of resistance and hope. In the new capital of Kalyara, a city aptly named Resolve. The bustling activity testified to a future finally within reach. The human settlers and the alien defectors who had joined their cause worked side by side, their combined expertise fueling advances once thought impossible. The planet's new government was a coalition of species, a living testament to the potential of unity. Architects and engineers, like Aisha Patel, had begun designing structures that combined human practicality with alien aesthetics, creating a skyward city that embodied their shared victory. Aisha, once skeptical of collaboration, now found herself entranced by the possibilities that lay in the melding of different cultures and technologies. In a newly constructed hospital, Dr. Jared Ng worked tirelessly alongside alien physicians, developing medical treatments that could be shared across species. The once insurmountable biological chasms were being bridged, one discovery at a time. Jared, who had lost his brother in the war, found solace in healing, his work a tribute to the brother who had taught him compassion transcends all boundaries. The terraforming success had also rekindled humanity's exploratory zeal. The failure that had loomed so large had been a crucible of innovation, forcing humans to rethink and adapt. Now, with Kalyara as a proving ground, plans were underway to extend humanity's reach to other hostile worlds, armed with the knowledge and resilience honed in adversity. Amidst the celebration, there was one final ceremony to attend. At the heart of Resolve, under the spire of the terraforming monument, a memorial had been erected. It bore the names of all who had given their lives for this dream, a reminder of the price of progress and the tenacity of hope. Alara, Marcus, Aisha, and Jared stood together, their presence a tribute to those who had not lived to see this day. As the names were read aloud, a soft wind carried their echoes across the plaza, a gentle caress that seemed to reaffirm that their sacrifice had not been in vain. After the ceremony, Alara and Marcus walked to the outskirts of the city. The air was sweet, the scent of alien flora mingling with the familiar comfort of Earth's transplanted ecosystems. They paused atop a hill, gazing at the panorama below, a living tapestry of humanity's will. "It's hard to believe we did it," Marcus said, his voice a mixture of wonder and disbelief. "We really did it," Alara nodded. "We did, and look at what it's become, a symbol, not just of survival, but of what's possible when we refuse to give up." "Do you think they'll remember?" Marcus asked, gesturing to the settlers bustling about their lives, many of whom would never know the depths of the struggle that had claimed this world. "They will," Alara assured him. "Every time they see that sky or breathe this air, they'll remember. And they'll know that this is what it means to be human. To fight, to adapt, to never surrender to the impossible." As they stood there, the first stars began to pierce the twilight. They were reminders of other worlds yet unreachable, each one a challenge waiting to be met. Humanity would not rest. Their spirit, now proven beyond any doubt, would carry them forward. And so, as the universe expanded around them, Kalyara stood as a beacon, a testament to a species that, against all odds, had refused to fail. In this strategic victory, humanity had not only forged a new world but had reshaped the destiny of countless others across the stars. With each step forward, they carried the legacy of those who had fallen, their dreams now part of the cosmic tapestry. The dawn of Kalyara marked more than a new day. It heralded a new era, where the impossible was just another challenge to overcome. Humanity, triumphant and indomitable, had forever changed the game.